Hi, it's Stuart again, and today we're going to talk about effective emails. So this is my guide to organizing my email, also how to send good emails. So I first started thinking about this when I saw a video of Scott Hanselman of Microsoft fame give a really great talk about personal productivity tips and especially email. And here's the link to it. Super worth watching. So my pro tip for organizing emails is to use folders and rules to move email that's incoming out of your inbox and into subfolders. So, you know, your scenario at work may vary, but I'm in consulting, and so I have personal stuff, I have stuff for customers, and I have stuff for my company, and then I've got some miscellaneous other topics. So what I do is I make folder trees inside my email and have rules that toss emails into folder trees. Sort of the first level of stuff that I want to move out of my inbox is all the routine barrage of stuff I get. I subscribe to newsletters, and they're great. I probably subscribe to yours if you have one. I'm on a bunch of build notification chains. I get Yammer and Slack posts and Teams posts, and I get status emails from the infrastructure about routine things, but I don't need those in my inbox. I do want to visit them again, but I don't need them in my inbox. So I move all of those. And it turns out after I did that, I had moved about 50% of my emails. And then there are certain emails that come to you from known aliases inside or outside your org. So I have a folder for my company and I have a folder for my customers. And as emails come to me from those, they get organized into the customers or into my company's folders. So HR things go in HR, payroll things go in payroll, ABC customer goes in ABC, DEF customer goes in DEF, and so on, right? So what's left in my email is composed of one of two kinds of emails. Either emails I haven't made a rule for yet, and I will probably get around to doing it in the moment, or emails that I need to stop and process. But what I've done is I've gotten rid of 2/3 of the, call it 200 emails a day on a bad day that I get, and I'm just nectared down to the stuff I should care about. And as emails come in, I throw them into subfolders after I've read them. And so the only thing that sticks around in my inbox is my to-do list, right? The stuff that I ought to personally take action on. More about that later. So here's a little Zen-like cone about emailing. It's really tempting to have the notifications turned on for your email client so that in your notification area on your PC or your Mac, you go pop up every time you get an email. The problem is that those really pull focus from what you're trying to do. And I'm a developer, right? So my primary thing is architecting things and solving problems and writing code and doing things like that. So, and I, have a little obsessiveness. And so, I turned off my notifications and instead got into a regular cadence of scanning my inbox for stuff that's genuinely important. So my next pet peeve and pro tip is sending good emails. And this is got to be my #1 pet peeve thing. So who belongs on the 2 line, the CC line and the BCC? The 2 should be anyone who will be taking action in response to your email. And the CC is everybody you need to tell about the email, but they're not action takers. Please don't mix and match those two things. For example, I see people reply all, change the subject line, or worse, don't change the subject line. More about that later. And start a completely off-topic thread. Sometimes they get rid of the email body, but a lot of times they don't. They just start this whole new conversation. And the people on the to and the CC bear no resemblance, none, to who the action takers are, the to line, and who the people are who need to know. My 2 cents on BCC for business email is just don't. The purpose of BCC, blind carbon copy, is if you're sending out to a big distro list or you're sending out to a whole group of people and you want to tell them something unidirectionally, but you don't want them to reply, that's a good BCC use case. If you're including your, compliance alias or something else, that's a good use case on BCC, but generally it's not a good idea to use BCC. It's not as blind a carbon copy as you think. Subject lines. Oh man, do I hate blank subject lines. If you're looking at your email, if you're like me, you probably have a modality where you have a list of all the emails and it's got who it's from and the subject line and a date and the little flags. So if you have no subject line, what I get is a blank flipping line. Or if I get a useless subject line like important stuff, just say no, all right? Subject lines are important. So how do you get a subject line right? Well, you get a subject line right by adopting a format that tells people important stuff. So, for example, if I'm sending an email around the company about a customer and project I'm working on, I'll use the first sort of syntax, right? Where the customer name is in the far left. Humans read things in a Z shape, starting at the upper left and terminating in the lower right. So the most important thing should be up and left. So customer name, project name, issue, action requested, or just issue and action requested. And here's some examples. The third example being probably the most important one, out of coffee world ending. Hell. Or just the issue. An issue is typically less of a call to action and more of a you need to know this because it affects you type of email. So get your subject lines right. If you're forwarding an email for action, at least change the action part of the subject line. You don't have to preserve the FWA part if you don't want to, although some email systems will, or clients will make threaded discussions out of them. If that's something you like, by all means. As I said before, please don't reuse unrelated emails and put a call to action in the subject line if there is an action to be had. If it's an FYI email, please mark it low importance. And please don't misuse high importance, because if you think everything, including donuts in the break room, deserves high importance, then you're broken. And we're going to stop listening to you. And then just be terse in your subject lines. A lot of email clients clip. A lot of people do email on their phone now and not always in landscape mode, right? They're in portrait mode. So we want the most important stuff to be up and left, right? So be terse. Here's the thing about how people write email bodies. From California, and some of us are, engineers, and the rest are, other people. And sometimes emails are a bit rambling and free-spirited, and I don't have time for those at work. If one of my friends wants to write me some free verse about something, yay for them. I'll think about reading it. But busy people who are at work need the highlights and the bullets. So don't think writing email, think writing memo, right? Subject line is the one-line summary. The very first part of the body is the short executive summary, and then we deep dive. So let's look at that. We want to make sure that our emails give all the facts, right? We need to make sure that it clearly explains the scenario, the participants. If there are attachments to be had, we want to make sure we use email safe attachments, which means PDF is generally okay. Text files are generally okay if you're sending a log or something. Less okay outside of your company or office documents, spreadsheets, things like that. You're far better off sending those things as shared links in the body of the email instead of as attachments. And, think memo, right? Use whole sentences and bullets. And so here's a good body email about a problem, right? We have an executive summary. And by the way, I have a little malapropism, which is if I'm writing something in this format, right, the memo format, I actually tend to put the executive summary and then not just a blank line, but a hashed line, like you see here. And then we get into the details. And at the bottom, we should have a paragraph, which is one or more sentences talking about the consequence of the problem we just outlined. And then the very last thing before the signature should be the required action. Can we have permission to spend cash to get assistance from the vendor? Right? And why they should do that is the consequence. It's this paragraph above that, right? That's a well-written memo. So, you should sign your work. Most email systems have the way to add an automatic signature. So I put my signature on anything I send. And my signature not only calls out that I am the willing participant who sends it, it sounds old-fashioned, right? They can look at the from and see who it's from. But really, if they're reading the email and they're following the flow that I outlined, we probably ought to revisit who the heck we are. And then if we're sending email to people who may not know us in our role, a full sig block, like at the bottom, which tells the reader who I am, my full name, right? And what my title is and where I work and things like that. And then how to get a hold of me, right? My email, even though it's in the from, right? My social media, so on Slack, Skype, and Teams, I'm Stuart W. My cell phone, and what time zone I'm in. That's actually something that more and more as we work in the distributed enterprise, that it's considered polite to put in your signature line. And by the way, yours doesn't have to look anything like mine, but you should convey some minimal pieces of information. Notice that I put them in a slightly different font and in a font size about half that of the email body, or at least 2 font sizes down. So we want to convey the information, but we don't want it to be so heavy on the page while they read it that it's there to be read, but not there to dominate the contents. Here's some things to remember. Email is forever. Corporate email especially is forever, right? If you work for an organization, a corporate organization, I guarantee you for compliance reasons, they're archiving all their emails. Never write anything that you will regret having read out loud in court, in front of your family, the press, or in front of your peers. Just assume that every email, no matter how confidential, has the potential to be part of the the social fabric, whether that's in court or somebody decides to do a document dump and, your email's held up in front of you by a reporter, or, you address it to the wrong people and your peers see it. So be careful what you put in emails. And here's the last power tip. Never email while angry. That's what the drafts folder is for. Write the email, let it be cathartic, do yourself a favor, and always compose emails and then put the CC, and if you must, a BCC on it. That way it can't be sent. so you don't fumble finger send an email you'll regret to everyone. Don't email angry. Hope this has been helpful. Thank you for your kind attention.